quick reminder that the Flying Pings app raffle will be ending with my next OC video. So if you guys want to go add a bunch of tickets to make sure, see if you can win, you guys can still have a chance to add them. If you don't have your notifications on, I recommend turning them on, because then you'll see when the raffles end, and it'll make it easier on you to know when you can enter again. You don't have to spam if you don't want, but spamming may help your chances a little bit. So I recommend it if you have time and you want to. But you know, you don't have to. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm going to be drawing Keith and Lance from Voltron. And let me tell you, okay, you guys must be huge Voltron fans, because I get an insane amount of comments requesting for Lance and Keith specifically all the time, like every day. I get this question, like, when are you going to draw these characters? And I'm like, why is this so requested? Well, let me tell you a little something. The first thing I was questioning was why everyone asked for Lance and Keith very specifically, because I watched the first season. I didn't watch any more past that, so I know you guys are like, oh no, she only watched the first season, that means she's gonna hate it, because the first season was more like, it didn't have as much of an intense plot. That's what I've heard from other people who've watched the show. But that's the only season I watched, and I wasn't a huge fan, but that's probably because the first season wasn't as good as the other seasons, but who knows. But anyway, I quickly realized why you guys always asked for Lance and Keith. That's because you're all shipping them, and I didn't know that until I actually realized that by seeing so many ship pictures on Instagram. It's so popular, and I didn't realize that for the longest time, because you guys are always requested them together. So I realized I should draw them together, even though I normally only draw one person when I draw things like this, but I decided to go with two and try and hurry up the drawing. I also recorded the sketching for once, I know. Shocking, because I never record the sketching. I always have to record only the coloring because I get so distracted and do the sketching on and off. But with this drawing, I drew it all in one night. So it was super easy and real quick, so I could just record all of it and it wasn't hard to do. Normally that isn't the case at all. But anyway, like I said, I didn't know you guys shipped these characters, and that's why I was so confused by people asking for only these characters, because I was like, well, there's so many characters in the show that seemed pretty equal in like how important they were. So I was like, why aren't they asking for Hunk, or they aren't asking for Pidge, or they aren't asking for Allura, or things like that? Is that how you say her name? I forget, because it was been such a long time ago when I watched the first season. But I watched the first season with my siblings, and I was expecting a little too much. I think I had a little too high hopes when I started watching it, because I learned it was made by the people who made The Last Airbender. And as you guys know, just because they made The Last Airbender, I was comparing the entire show to Last Airbender, and I was disappointed because The Last Airbender felt more, I don't know, explain it. It's like, let me explain. Okay, the humor. To me, a humor is super important to a show, but if the humor is a little too slapstick, I guess, it's harder to become, like, feel like it's a real character. For instance, this is a good explanation. Okay, in The Last Airbender, Sokka was the comic relief, but he also was a very, very developed character on his own. He wasn't only the comic relief, you know what I mean? And then in Korra, Bolin quickly became just the comic relief. He didn't have any real developing factors besides the fact that he was just there to be funny. And that became awkward, and that's why Bolin was way less of an amazing character than Sokka was. And I'm not talking just from childhoods. I've actually watched the show more recently. Well, some of it. I haven't watched through every single season. So I'm not just talking because it was like a childhood favorite show. I actually think Last Airbender is really well written. And when I came to Voltron, I was expecting that sort of witty sort of humor, but also at the same time having huge character development along with it, so that it's not they're just being funny to be funny. They're being funny, but all the characters are kind of funny in their own ways, and they all had personality. But it kind of, the first time I watched it, it felt kind of like a little bit forced humor. It felt like Lance was trying to be Sokka a little too much, but it wasn't like Sokka, because it felt like the humor was just like all out there 24/7. But still, Hunk was also the same way in a sense. Hunk felt a lot like comic relief. And, well, the entire show felt like comic relief a little bit in the first season. But I just felt like there wasn't enough character backing up the comedy, I guess. And it made the characters feel like cartoon characters instead of real people. And when I was watching The Last Airbender, I felt like were like real people. And then when I watched this, it just felt too comical, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. I know it's a cartoon, so I shouldn't expect things like that because cartoons are made for kids. I know someone's gonna scream and be like, no, Voltron isn't made for kids. But no, I mean, it's made for kids, like in the sense that kids will enjoy it. But I mean, unless it gets really dark, though I can't say that still isn't for kids, because back in the day, the Batman cartoon, people would die all the time and there were guns and no one questioned it back then. It's just, I guess, now there's different standards. But still, I know these people who made like The Last Airbender and Korra, that normally their shows do have more plot and more story than most cartoons. Because when people think cartoons, they think Gumball or something like that, or like Teen Titans Go. They think those are cartoons only, and then they don't consider these cartoons, but these are just well done cartoons. Kind of like Teen Titans. The original Teen Titans had a plot, sorta, and that was like an interesting thing. It was like the cartoons sometimes are really good, but other times they just aren't that great. So this is like the type of cartoon that even an adult could enjoy because it has a story. You know what I mean? I hope I'm making any sense whatsoever, but that's what The Last Airbender was like. Like an adult could enjoy it because it had a plot. It wasn't just, you know, normal cartoons where they do something in the next episode, everything they did in the last episode meant nothing. But this kind of reminds me of anime in a sense. Anime is shows in Japan, but they're not made for kids. They're made for adults, because over there, everyone watches animated shows. It's not just kids. Over here, it's more rare to see adult animated shows, and if it is, it's mostly just comedies and stuff like that with adult humor, and that's mostly all we get. But over there in Japan, they normally get shows that are for adults, but because of the plot and things being really intense and actually being like a movie, but animated. And honestly, I am so jealous of that, because I would love to be able to understand all the animes as soon as they come out, because oh my goodness. Or having animated movies, like in Japan, they have anime movies at the top of like their movie theaters as the most popular movies to come out. I couldn't imagine. That would be so amazing, because I love dramas and I love intense stories, and I love some of my favorite shows are by far animes, because they come out and they're super intense and they have a lot of emotion and they can tell a story in even just like 25 episodes or even sometimes 12 episodes. Like I watched a lot of animes, I think it was 11 or 12 episodes that these animes would start and end in that much time. And that's something that shows lose a lot, and I mean a lot. They lose the idea of a story starting and a story ending. Instead, they just have a ton of episodes, like hundreds of episodes, and the story doesn't actually have an idea. Like normally, what I love is when someone makes a story and the first thing they think of is the ending. What was going to end and how it's going to end. So then the story is actually going to come to a close, and then, you know, it's like the actual plot ends. But I feel like most shows, they just keep going and keep going, even though they aren't sure what they're going to do, and it feels a little forced. Because, you know, I know it's a whole, like, people want to make money. They don't want to not make any money off their show. But I still think it's so cool how Japan can get away with making shows that are short, have a story start and end, and then make a next show. And I think that's so cool. And I just really admire that about them, because it's just something I love. Like Tokyo Magnitude only had like so many episodes. Kids on the Slope only had so many episodes, and it was just so good, and I love them to death. Anyway, we're done. I'm sorry for rambling, but I hope you guys like this picture of Lance and Keith. I wasn't sure about posing, so I just kind of, he's holding a football. I don't know if he even likes sports. I'm sorry. I just did whatever sounded fun at the time. I only watched the first season, so I'm kind of guessing on personalities here, but I hope you guys like it. Make sure to comment and let me know things you would like to see me do, because, you know, I really like having ideas, because I don't normally have my own. I'm a loser. But yeah, the raffle is going to be ending, so make sure to go enter, and thank you guys so much for watching.